This is the Cam Rogers Show. Get me wherever you go by downloading the podcast version. Head on to chatsports.com/Cam Show to get the iTunes podcast of the Cam Rogers Show. So again, if you got to head out on this Wednesday morning, go buy flowers for the wife or the significant other, whatever the case may be, don't you worry. Hit on iTunes and you can download the Cam Rogers Show and get me as you go to get those chocolates for that special somebody in your life. All right, here's the deal. This is the schedule for today. So I'm going to open up about Johnny Manziel. He had an exclusive with Good Morning America on Monday. Talk a little bit about that and how I feel he deserves a second chance. I'll give you a few reasons, then I'll play a few clips from that interview on Monday. At the 15-minute mark, that will transition me into the ultimate XFL offense because all of you YouTube commenters out there love it so much. I am giving you another XFL segment. I am giving you my top potential offense that could go down in 2020. Skipping over the offensive line because people don't like to hear about it for some reason. But at other positions, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, don't you worry, I got you covered. And then at the 30-minute mark, well, we're going to focus on the NFL. I got your top potential free agent additions for the AFC South and NFC South, respectively. I did the North divisions on Monday. Also have done the East divisions as well. And, of course, I have to do the West. Probably will do that on Friday. And then at the 45-minute mark, 5 potential franchise tag candidates. So I'll go through some big-time names who could remain on their respective squads with the franchise tag. And then, with time permitting, a final word about some pretty bad PR for college football, talking about attendance drops, historically bad attendance drops, collectively for the FBS. I'll tell you about those numbers later in the show. All right, let's get into it. Johnny Manziel back into the headlines in a positive fashion this time, going out and interviewing with Good Morning America and an exclusive, essentially, talking about his progress and, coming back from what really was a tough, dark hole, as he put it. And Manziel has gone public with his story. He hasn't played in the NFL since 2015, you may recall, with the Cleveland Browns, of course. And, he's been in his fair share of negative headlines. The domestic violence case back in 2016, charges were eventually dropped, and Manziel took an anger management course. There was the partying, the drinking, the lack of self-control, the fact that Johnny Manziel just got too full of himself. He thought he was invincible, and all of this stuff just kind of piled into one and really led Manziel down a really bad spiral. And so really, you see the interview with Good Morning America, and it makes you feel that he has matured, that he has really turned things around. And I believe in second chances, and I think Johnny Manziel deserves one, or at least deserves a look from NFL scouts. He may not have the tools to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, so he may not ever be back to, a Week 1 starter in 2018 or in 2019 or whatever the case may be. But it's clear that Manziel is reflective and remorseful in his mistakes. And I think that's the most important thing. The most important takeaway from that interview with Good Morning America is that, look, this guy is sitting back and understanding all of the mistakes that he had, all the effects he had on his family and his friends, etc., and his teammates too. So, we can brush it aside, the NFL or not, and we can focus on just the character of Manziel and how he has clearly improved as a person. And it was very obvious in his interview with Good Morning America on Monday that he's a different guy now. And I'm going to cut to actually my first soundbite here where he's talking about the effects that he had on his mother. Let's roll it.
You don't understand when people come up to us like, what the hell is your son doing? And I didn't really feel that until my mom said that. She just broke down. She was crying, and I saw the trickle-down effects of what I was doing in my daily life.
This is a guy who really gets it, I think, at this point, guys. I mean, going down the spiral of the partying and the drinking and the lack of self-control and all of this, Manziel is somebody who I feel has new perspective on life. And you see in many stories that comeback kind of mentality and that comeback kind of narrative where somebody goes down this spiral of negative headlines and bad decision-making and all this and this adversity, and then a player comes back from it. And I think Johnny Manziel could be the latest example of that. And I am not here to argue that Manziel should be a Week 1 starter in the NFL. I am arguing that he deserves a second chance, a second look, and a second opportunity to be a quarterback in the National Football League. So, with that, we have a little weigh-in for the folks watching right now on the Cam Rogers Show. Should Johnny Manziel play in the NFL again? So, I feel this is probably a polarizing topic, and comeback or not, the most important thing for me is the change in character. And what appears to be a calmer, more mature Johnny Manziel, if you watch these sound bites and you look at what he has said recently in his statements, and it's clear that he is evaluating his problem and he's becoming a better person through these solutions as he goes through them. He has gotten to the point where he can really self-diagnose himself, right? He can look back at the times that were and say, look, I was in a really bad state. I was in a dark hole. And he actually took to Twitter a couple days ago, and it was a really telling tweet because it kind of showed how the interview went on GMA. It kind of perfectly summarized the whole interview with ABC. And we'll show that tweet in a little bit here. But Manziel has matured to the point where he knows alcohol isn't the solution. And perhaps he used to think it was, but obviously not anymore. And here's the tweet. Quote, "At the end of the day, athletes are human beings too. You can get caught up in the fame, the life, but when it's all said and done, we're the exact same. Far from perfect. God bless you all, and thank you for hearing my story." So that was a couple days ago following that GMA interview. And look, he's absolutely right. We look at these athletes on the field, and we don't think about the humanality behind them. Now, I mentioned this actually in my earlier episodes of the Cam Rogers Show, how people tend to just kind of see players on a court, on a field, as just these robots for their own entertainment while they sit on the couch and enjoy it. But at the end of the day, there is a person off the field. There is a person, you know, outside the ropes, or whatever analogy you want to make it. And Johnny Manziel is bringing that to the forefront with his interview and with this tweet here. And he mentions how, you know, he would self-medicate himself with alcohol, but now he's focusing on the mental health. And I think that is so important, that that is his main priorities, the mental side of things rather than the physical and anything like that, because it starts between the ears, especially for Johnny Manziel. And we'll roll another clip here where, you know, he talked about that, improving the mental side of things on Monday. Let's roll it.
I started taking a look at my mental health a little bit and making it a priority in my life, and Bree making it a priority in my life, to where I'm taking medication for bipolar, and I'm working to try and make sure that I don't fall back into any type of depression, because I know where that leads me, and I know how slippery of a slope that is for me.
And he also talked about how, you know, he's diagnosed with bipolar disorder. That's something we did not know prior to that interview. So I don't know if Johnny Manziel could ever be successful in the NFL. And like I said, I'm not here to argue that. I don't even think Johnny knows if he can be successful in the National Football League. That's far too down the road for me. But I do think if he works hard, improves his mechanics, maybe bulks up a bit, and focuses on the fundamentals, an NFL team may perhaps give him a look. And Manziel knows it's a day-to-day process, and really that's the only way to look at it, right? That's the best way for Johnny Manziel to look at it. He can't have this macro perspective, these long, lofty goals of, you know, winning a Super Bowl. There's a reason he didn't mention Super Bowl and, you know, being a champion or anything like that, because he's got the perspective now. He's not so full of himself anymore. He understands it's a day-to-day process, because he is dealing with, obviously, a condition that is very serious, and bipolar disorder. You know, he's working on that. He's working on his mental side of things. And, you know, he's got a good support system with his family. And like I said, being day-to-day, you know, you hear about that all the time, and just from regular NFL players that are employed right now that aren't dealing with any of the stuff that Johnny Manziel is dealing with. You know, talking about injuries and things like that, you know, not looking to the next opponent. Johnny Manziel is certainly channeling that day-to-day kind of mentality. Here he is talking about it.
Now, the question that you asked was, is that sustainable, and will that be the case moving forward? I would like to sit here and say yes, and I have a lot of confidence that that would be the case. But at the end of the day, it's to be seen. I'm still moving forward. I'm still doing the little meticulous things that I have to do on a daily basis to try and keep this right.
So why now? Why is he coming out with an exclusive interview and talking about his story and all of that? Is there some sort of selfish gain to this? I really don't think there is. I really feel he knows it's time to kind of come clean and really change the trend and the perception of Johnny Manziel. Because everybody, you think Johnny Manziel, you think partying, you think bad decision making, and there's a guy that's going into the NFL draft that is drawing comparisons to this dude, one Baker Mayfield. And Johnny Manziel actually went out and said that, well, they are two totally different people. And maybe Johnny Manziel is kind of doing Baker Mayfield a favor right now by going out into the public and saying, look, I made really bad decisions. I'm not Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is not me, kind of thing. And, I'm becoming a better person as I go throughout these solutions that have been brought to me. So I do believe Johnny Manziel deserves a second chance. Whether that is in the NFL, maybe it's the CFL, or maybe, just maybe, he plays in Vince McMahon's XFL, and McMahon gives Manziel a little exception and lets him play in the XFL in a couple of years because, of course, well, McMahon said he doesn't want people with criminal records playing in the XFL, but maybe McMahon is seeing this interview here and saying to himself, okay, Johnny Manziel has a lot of time to improve upon things, and this is a very important first step. Johnny Manziel has announced he'll join the Spring League, which is a 4-team league with a season from March 28th to April 15th. By the way, Kellen Winslow Jr. also expected to play. And I believe he also played in 2017 in that Spring League as well. So a couple of my names here on my list all of a sudden planning on playing for the Spring League, which is a very interesting note there. So Johnny Manziel, the interview on Monday with GMA, and then goes ahead and announces that he will be playing in the Spring League. So pretty cool right there. So we'll, of course, be following Johnny Manziel's progress and Kellen Winslow Jr. as well. Perhaps he makes a comeback to the NFL, or perhaps he joins the XFL in 2020.